Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today in Warcraft Rumble, we are going to go over the best talents for every single unit in the game. It is going to be a new format where I go for one archetype at a time for each video. So today we are going to be talking about the best talents for the beast units in Warcraft Rumble. It is this week the beast week, as you can see here. So in the grid, you are going to see the beast heroes show up. So it is a perfect time to go and talk about what talents are best for every single unit in that category. First, we're going to talk about the three leaders, the three heroes. First, obviously going to be old Murk Eye, my personal favorite, and in my opinion, the best beast hero in the game currently. So when it comes to old Murk Eye, there is one talent that really stands out, and it is the Marathon of the Murloc, which is the one that I have, and that about 80% of the player base is currently using that. So for those who don't know, when you have this leader, for 5 seconds after deploying, you can spend gold, and every gold you spend will summon a Murloc Tidehunter, which is a little guy with a spear. So this makes it so that for 5 more seconds, this effect applies. So it is almost a no-brainer that this is the best by far, simply because it really gives you basically 1 gold of a unit, because every Tidehunter is worth about 1 gold since it costs 2 gold to summon 2 of them. So this is like every time you spend 1 gold on another unit, you get a free Tidehunter. They're squishy, they're easy to counter, but it's a free 1 gold unit that your opponent has to deal with. 5 more seconds of this means 5 more seconds of income, which means you can spend more gold, which means you're getting a lot of value from this talent. The top one tip of the spear is the worst by far. You do not want him to spawn on top of the leader, because then it makes it much easier to AoE, as opposed as if you're summoning them to your base, it will go up as a flow, so they create a line in the lanes, which means that, you know, it'll be harder to like blizzard them all down, for example. Now, electric eel is not bad by any chance, because briefly stunning enemies can be good. For example, a safe pallet takes so long to charge her attack. If you stun her, it interrupts the attack, so it will eventually just never launch. So that's one example, but many of them, like think about the Banshee, for example, things like that, when they're stunned, you know, it's a big counter. So this is something that can be good, but nothing beats the Marathon of the Murlocs, which is by far the best talent and the most chosen in the community. Moving on to Charlga Razorflank, the worst hero in the game by far, in my opinion. She has a weird ability that makes it so that every mini in your hand has a randomized cost based on the cost in your deck. So very weird. I don't like her at all. But the talents that she does have are not bad and do make her significantly better. Now, in the game currently, about 60% of the players are using Spirit Passage, the third one here, which is probably her best one, especially for PvP, for competitiveness. Minis played for 5 gold gain a level and deploy in stealth. So your 5 gold minis, which in this deck can be any of them, but you do need to have 5 gold minis in your deck for this to work, will spawn with a higher level. So your 5 mini are already usually pretty strong. So you will make them much stronger. Being stealth as well means that they can't be targeted the same way. So this can create a very, very strong 5 cost mini. The problem is that you don't know which mini is going to get it because of her passive, which means that the costs are randomized in your deck. So it could be very, very good, but you could also, you know, have a minor that costs 5. So it could be, you know, it's really a hard hero to play. She's very weird. This is, in my opinion, her best talent. Reduced cost of deployment by 1 is good because obviously, you know, you're saving gold, but you're not really summoning this hero all the time because it's just not that good. So her first talent, I also think, is very good, very situational. Her attack, basically, if you look here, you see that her attack basically roots a target. So like the target can't move and does take a significant amount of damage. And in this case, you know, the tower can't attack. This doesn't work on every tower and it doesn't work on every mob. But, you know, for some heroes, some units, like this example perfectly shows the Torrent, for example, it is very good. It's a hard unit to really put in your army and a hard deck to build because of the cost. So good to keep that in mind. But yeah, Spirit Passage, about 60% of the population that plays this game is using this. And then the other 2 are 20/20. So this is one of the heroes that you can't really play any of them. They're just different builds, different styles of play. Next, we have Hogger, which is going to be very simple because while there is 3 choices, Hawk, the number 1, gives 10% more HP every time he's played. his passive is that every time he's played, he gains attack speed and movement speed already. So in one match, every time you replay him, he gets stronger and stronger. This gives him more HP, which is incredibly powerful. Poison, not very good for him. That's not really his role. And the Fatal Frenzy, giving Bloodlust to Beasts, also not very good for him. Not that it's bad, but it's just there's not that many beasts in this deck that benefit from it. Also, it's just, you know, it requires him to die, which means there could be many reasons. It could be very situational, and Hamhawk is just too good to skip. 96% of players playing this game currently are using Hamhawk on this hero, and there's a reason for that. It is by far his best and only real option that you should be choosing when you're playing Hogger, because Hogger's decks are built around him being replayed over and over to get stronger and stronger. So this just goes so well into it, and it's just a mandatory talent in my opinion if you're going to be playing Hogger seriously. Now moving on to the unit. Quilboar, the most popular unit in the game currently, for good reason. An incredibly strong unit that has resistance, that can be spawned anywhere because he's unbound. Out of his talents, none of them are bad, but Tunnel Vision is the best option simply because it allows him to be summoned way quicker on chest, have much more map control that way. Otherwise, when you're summoning him, he can take so much damage just by the time he takes to come out of the ground, which is quite long. So he really does need this Tunnel Vision to excel. Now, he does accomplish his role very well even without it. It's not a requirement for this unit to be good, but it just makes this unit just so much better, already being such a good unit. Bristleback is really not bad because he does do a significant amount of damage back to enemies. So this is good against swarms, like little chickens or like 5 skeleton parties and stuff like that. This can be quite good there, but the melee meta is not very strong right now, especially because of the flame towers. So just not that good currently. Inflicting poison on nearby enemies when emerging is not bad either, but it's very, very situational and just doesn't do the same effect as Tunnel Vision in my opinion, given that his role is map control, chest control, and that does make it much better and much easier to do with him. Tunnel Vision is currently used by 77% of players playing this game, which kind of speaks for itself. Next, we have the Prowler. Now, this is one that is quite mitigated because first, the division is very equal in terms of how many players are using. It's about 30% for Pack Leader, 30% for Predatory Instincts, and 40% for On the Prowl. So this is just because this is 3 very decent talent, but very different playstyles in terms of decks. On the Prowl, in my opinion, is the best for PvP. The Prowler is a very good counter to a lot of meta unit like the Huntress, like the Dark Spirit Troll. Being stealth and having a stun makes him solo these mobs very, very easily. Also very good for lane control with the chest. So this is where On the Prowl comes very handy. PvP, it's absolutely amazing. Now for PvP and PvE, obviously everything does work. But Pack Leader is one that's a bit weird. Grants nearby beast 30% additional damage. So if you're building a very strong beast deck, for example with Murk Eye, who summons tons of Murloc, having a Prowler with that ability can do significant amount of boost and be very, very powerful. But it requires the deck to be built around beast getting boosted by the Prowler, right? So the Prowler's role in that case becomes buffing. Also, he's very fast, so he needs to have units that can keep up with him. So this is where, you know, it becomes, you know, decent. He's a tank. He lives for a long-ish amount of time, and he jumps on enemies. So he's very good, but he doesn't usually live forever because of his jump. So this is why this Pack Leader is very situational. You have to really build your deck around it for it to be good. But it is good and can be very decently used in both PvE and PvP. Predatory Instincts is another one that's really good. He does double damage to enemy who are more than 75% health. So if he engages an enemy at full HP, his first attack will do double damage, which in many cases will one-shot the enemy. So in this case, it's very good. And in PvP, it can have a very, very strong effect. But On the Prowl does the same thing in the fact that he's stealth and he stuns, which means he'll get 2 attacks off before the enemy even does anything. And usually will kill the enemy before anything happens because of the stun. So it kind of is similar in that way. But, you know, the Predatory Instinct, if he's jumping from one enemy to the other and killing them one shot every time, it can be very, very snowbally. It can have very, very good effect. But so can On the Prowl, being stealth, giving you the movement to move around the map without being targeted by range or flying mobs and stuff like that, which there are a lot of in this game currently. So here it's a very, very different talent choice. You really don't have anything that can go wrong. Pack Leader, I would say, is more PvE friendly, while the other two are versatile for any game mode. So it really is up to you depending on the playstyle that you want to go for. On the Prowl, in my opinion, is the safest and the best bet for the least amount of effort and thinking and building your deck around it. It just makes the Prowler a very easy unit to put in a lane and get the chest or counter some really annoying unit that costs way more than him. Next, we have the Murloc Tidehunters, which are a very big staple of Beast and Beast decks. They are very, very powerful because you spawn 2 of them. They are fast and they do a very decent amount of damage for how cheap they are. Now, in terms of talent, there's 2 choices here. Safety Bubble, it's about 55% of the people using it because it's very powerful in the sense that it requires a full attack to be wasted on them before them being targetable or taking damage. Now, they're very squishy, so the second attack usually one-shots them. But if you think about a lot of units in this game that have slow attacks, they will basically tank the first full attack for free, which means that they will get close enough to get their own attack off. Which means that they usually will be able to kill the unit and trade positively against unit that costs way more than them, even though you know, they're squishy and they're weak. Now, this obviously only works once when you summon them, and there's many ways of countering it and making it not work. A lot of spells, a lot of, like, you know, the Huntress, which bounces around, the Dragons, which breathe fire. It will, you know, it's multiple ticks of damage. It's a lot of bounce, a lot of AoE. So all of that kind of stuff still kind of counters it because the bubble can burst quite easily and they can still take damage. But it does still give them a very comfortable way to be played because it requires the enemy to react to them. Now, the careful aim, it's not bad, giving 2+ range. It's never bad to have more range. But in this situation, they're already pretty fast. So the range is not the biggest of deals. They do catch up to the enemy and attack them quite fast, being that they're fast. So this is not bad, but in my opinion, Safety Bubble accomplishes the same thing with even more options for counterplay. So I think Safety Bubble is better than Careful Aim in this situation. The other option I would choose though would be Murloc. Now this summons 1 additional Murloc, which is obviously amazing. Now having 1 more unit makes it so that, you know, they do a lot more damage and they do have to be dealt with, but AoE still demolishes them instantly. They don't have a bubble in that case, which means that any spell, any ricochet, any AoE damage just instantly kills them. So while Murloc is very good, the Safety Bubble, in my opinion, will be your best PvP bet because you will be able to have a lot more counterplay and options. And the Murlocs will be more PvE oriented, where, you know, having more units can accomplish a lot more because the computer plays very differently than a player. In any situation, I think Safety Bubble and Murlocs are both good. I would say Safety Bubble is the best option and it is the one that I would prefer. Next, we have the Harpies, one of the most popular unit in the game currently for a good reason. This summons a pack of 3 of them, which is very valuable, basically meaning they're kind of 1 gold each. And they demolish any tanks and obviously anyone who doesn't attack the air. Now, when you think about their talents, the Infectious Swipe is ultimately the best, and I think about 75% of the players are using it for that reason. Gaining poison is immensely powerful because they attack super fast, so the poison does apply and stack incredibly fast and does an incredible amount of damage to tanky and big beefy units. They just melt them. It's incredible how fast it goes. 3 units applying poison at the same time, attacking so fast. It's really powerful. They do so much damage, so having poison on them just makes them such a hard threat that you need to deal with it no matter what. So this is by far the best talent for them in any PvE or PvP situation. Trinket Collector makes them minors, but increases their cost by 1. I don't think that's very good. I really don't like it. If it didn't increase the cost, it would be very nice. But increasing their cost, you know, at best, your Harpies are not meant to mine. At best, they're going to mine 1 or 2 node in PvP, making up their cost back. But if they don't, then you've spent 4 on Harpies. They're already 3 is already, you know, a decent amount. 4 is starting to be a lot of expensive. They're really good, but they're so squishy and so easy to counter as well. So you do need to be careful. I'm not a big fan at all. Now moving on to Talon Dive. This is very rarely chosen. It's not bad, but their deal is about attacking often and multiple times. So Infectious Swipe will give it so much more damage than Talon Dive. So in this case, you're just choosing an extra damage talent, while Infectious Swipe is way better. So nobody should be taking Talon Dive ever. Next, we have the Gnoll Brute. Now, the Gnoll Brute is a very interesting unit. It is a bit like Hogger. You know, it's a kind of like a tank that does cleaving. So really decent unit. Now, I've taken the talent Rabbit, which makes his cost reduced by 1. Otherwise, he would be a cost of 3. So in this situation, it's quite self-explanatory. Rabbit is by far the best talent you can get on this guy. For a cost of 2, he's actually very decent as a tank that does a lot of cleave damage. I think about 80% of the player base is using this, so it kind of makes sense. You know, cycle 1, it's super strong. He can be cast very easily, and it just makes for beast deck, which are usually lower cost, more units. It works so perfectly in any situation. So this is why I would suggest this over anything else for any situation, PvP or PvE. Pillage, don't take that. I don't like it. Deal siege damage. He's not meant to do siege damage. He has a cleave. If you're not cleaving siege towers, kind of like counterintuitive. Doesn't work at all with him. I don't think. There's so many siege units in this game. This is just not one of them. And thick hide gains armor. It's not bad. As a cost of 3 as a tank with cleave armor, very powerful, but so many units in this game that are meta do elemental damage, which makes that not very useful. So in this situation, Rabbit is really the choice. So next we have Raptors, another that's quite easy. 80% of the people are going to be choosing strength in number. Now, it is not the one I chose because obviously I did a mistake at the beginning, but it doesn't matter. So Raptors work basically by when you do spawn them, you can keep clicking and spending more gold, and it spawns more. As you can see, you can just keep going and it spawns 2 and then 3, and then the gold cost will go with it. So it will be the same amount of gold as Raptors summoned, but it is basically a unit that's meant to be masked or spawned multiple times. So strength in number is exactly a talent for that. The more you have, the stronger they are. It is really why they exist. Fast food is terrible because on kill, they heal. They're so squishy. They're meant to be masked. They don't really like kill and heal. They have not a lot of HP to heal anyways in the first place. Their role is not to heal themselves. Their role is to die and do damage. So very not good. Gain bloodlust while chest or gold vein is nearby for motivation. And now it's really not too bad. It can have some play for sure because, you know, chest and gold veins, you can use them to control those, and it is one of their roles in this game. So this is something that can be very good, but 10% more damage ends up being more, you know, beneficial in the end if you are going to be spawning them more than once. Next, we have our first spell in the beast category, Polymorph. Now, Polymorph is a very powerful spell. It will transform, you know, anything into a sheep, and the duration is about 6 seconds, and it can be a little bit less or more depending on the level. But basically, this is self-explanatory. Polymorphing is great. It will make it so that you can kill these enemies that are very strong much easier. In this situation, about 80% of players are using Golden Fleece, meaning that one of the sheep becomes gold and killing it grant 1 gold. So for a cost of 3 as a spell, granting 1 gold back does make it a 2 cost spell, and it's a very powerful 2 cost spell in this situation. So you do have to be careful and make sure that you do kill the Golden Fleece. So if you are going to be using Polymorph with this talent, make sure that you have a spell or a certain unit that does high damage that you can kind of like apply together. Otherwise, it will be wasted, and that would be terrible. But, you know, that is the best talent for PvP and PvE both. It makes Polymorph a much more easy to cycle spell than anything else. Exploding Sheep is the second option, in my opinion. Very good, because killing the sheep will damage nearby enemies, which will be other sheeps in many situations. So can be paired with certain minis or certain spell that target, you know, a specific unit. But Golden Fleece is more versatile, more all-rounded, a lot easier to pull off. And Exploding Sheep, often if you're going to be polymorphing like a 5 cost big mini, well, this becomes useless if there's nothing around them. So, you know, this is where it can be much more situational, while Golden Fleece kind of always gives you value back. And then the last one, I don't even really need to talk about it. The sheep lasts much longer, but the enemy regenerates HP very quickly. There is situations where it can be good, but in the majority of time, it will not be good. Next, we're going to talk about the Vultures, one of the weirdest units in this game. So the way they work is basically anytime they kill, they will spawn 1 additional unit. So every time they make a kill, you know, if they kill a lot of units, they're going to spawn a lot of Vultures. So when you go into the talents, this is one of those that's a bit random. Feeding Frenzy is the most popular. About 40% of people are using Feeding Frenzy. This is, in my opinion, the best one too, because when your flock is in the map and stuff, and they're killing something anywhere, well, then they're all going to gain Bloodlust, which is going to be great. And then they can be killing another mob 5 seconds later and gain Bloodlust again. So it's something that can happen multiple times and can happen on any of the vultures killing anything. And then they obviously become better at killing with bloodlust. So can be, you know, something that snowballs you quite hard. Tendon Rip, attack daze enemy. I don't think it's bad. Dazing, it kind of slows them and makes them like do less stuff, but it's just very, very situational. And against an enemy that attacks the air, while dazing, it won't do anything. By the time you reach it, you'll be dead. So you want to have something like Bloodlust, which makes you reach it faster and kill it faster. Migration makes it so that the vultures, instead of spawning where the vultures are, they'll spawn back at your base. It can be very useful. It can be good. It's just very weird to play with. Vultures in general are just very weird to play in general. Nobody really uses them because they are so weird and so easy to counter. But if you're going to be using them, I think Feeding Frenzy would be your best choice. Next, we have the Spiderlings. These Spiderlings are one of the worst units in the game by far. You should not be using them, in my opinion. They're not very good. Their big thing is that they have poison, and there's 2 of them. Right? Poison does damage over time, very strong against tanks, very strong against armored units. But there are so many other units that give poison that are better than these, the Harpies, for example. But the thing about the talents here is that there isn't really anything that makes them much better. Frostbite is 85% of the players using it. It is the best thing you can get on them. They apply poison and frost. So against the tank, they'll slow it and poison it. But they just die instantly to anything that blows on them. Even look at them, they're dead. So it's really hard to, you know, do much with them. I like Bloated Carapace. When they die, they explode, poisoning enemies. But their cost of 2, you know, you're basically using 2 of your gold for a bit of poison on the enemy. It's just not worth the gold. Like, the talent isn't bad, but they're not worth their gold. So in that sense, I don't like them a lot, and I don't like that they're already applying poison attacking. So by dying, applying poison, sometimes they won't really do much. Envenom deals twice as much poison damage. Now, they can be very, very good. But there's 2 of them, they die in 1 attack. Anything they go against will instantly kill them. So they'll apply poison a little bit, but not long enough to do much. So Frost is where you're going to gain more value because you slow down the enemy, giving you more chance to survive and giving you other minis a chance to do something. But in general, you shouldn't be using these guys. I don't think they're very good in any deck whatsoever. Now, last but not least, the Angry Chickens. One of the most iconic spell of this game, or unit of this game. Obviously, it spawns a big army of tons of these little chickens that move fast. They don't have any poison or anything like that. They just attack quickly. They die instantly to any AoE or anything that touches them. So it is a quite hard unit to use. All the talents are decent and they work. I think Walking Crate is not their best talent, though. What it makes is that it makes a crate so that the crate needs to be destroyed and then all the chickens spawn. So if someone's going to be using a spell, well, they can't use the spell until the crate's been destroyed. Otherwise, it won't kill all the chicken. But it still doesn't do much other than protecting them from 1 hit. 1 range attack, and then the person does a spell and they're all dead anyways. So it can be useful to have, you know, them in a crate, but it also can backfire. So it's a bit harder to use. Sacrifice is their best talent, in my opinion, and the most chosen by about 40%. This makes it so that nearby beasts can kill a chicken and heal themselves. In my opinion, this can be very good for certain decks, specifically like Hogger decks, because Hogger will benefit from this very much and can be one of the beasts that heals themselves. You know, the Quilboar is also tanky, it can heal himself. But in general, beasts don't have anything that costs a lot of gold to play, which means they're not very powerful units. Which means there's not much benefit to be had from this one in particular. So it's a hit and miss. It can be very good, but it'll be specifically for a few certain types of decks only. Furious Fowl, Gain Fury, will be probably their best talent all-rounding for PvP and PvE. Mostly these are more PvE unit in my opinion though. And then Gaining Fury will make them, you know, attack much faster. And because there's so many of them, if they're unchecked, they can really, really wreck something quite quickly with Fury. So it makes them a threat that needs to be answered, but it is a threat that is quite easy to answer already. A cost of 2 is not too bad, but it is something that can be countered by so many units, including the safe palette, which we see in every single game of PvP. So in this situation, you know, you have to be careful. They're not the best unit to be applying in every deck, but they can work in certain deck, and the talent that makes them heal or the talent that gain Fury will be, in my opinion, your best choice. So guys, that's all the beast unit and their talents. I've given you my opinion as well as the statistic on how many people are using some talents. Hopefully it helps you build your decks and have some information. Now, there are going to be many things in this game that change meta-wise, unit-wise, this is not going to be accurate forever, and there are going to be specific decks that use certain talents that are not deemed optimal, which will still work perfectly fine without any issues. So this is not something that's solid in stone, you must pick this talent only, but just a general idea to give you an idea of what you are going to be looking for when you are buying these talents. Make sure to subscribe. I'm going to make a video like this for every single unit type in this game, going over every single talent for everyone. So if this is helpful to you, make sure to share it around, subscribe, and put a like in the video. It would really help the channel grow. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.